Relationships. What a fertile topic. I've been doing programs for many, many years, working with people at very intimate levels of their lives. And it seems that there are two topics that come up again and again and again because we're still needing healing and awareness around them. And one is relationships, and the other is prosperity. And I think that each of us has a cutting edge for a lifetime where most of our strongest lessons live and await. For some people it's relationships, prosperity. Other people it's physical health. Other people it's family issues. Other people it's career issues. Sometimes it's a spiritual path that's the most intense. But there's usually one area that gets your attention more than others, usually because there's problems or challenges in it. And in a way, it's painful because it hurts. But another way, it's fabulous because if you can work with the pain and heal the issues that are creating the pain, you've created a lifetime of mastery. And I have to be honest and say that my cutting edge has been relationships. And over my lifetime, I've been in and out of many relationships. Some have been absolutely wonderful, and some have been quite hellish. But I have to say that I've learned from them all, and I've made a lot of progress. I'm not the same person I was many years ago because I've done my best to take my relationship experiences and milk them for spiritual growth. And of course, that's the answer to anything. What's the spiritual lesson in this? And if you can go to that level of it, you've really made a lot of progress. So let's look at relationships and see if we can dispel some of the illusions that keep us bound. One truth, one illusion, is that you're going to meet Mr. Right or Ms. Right and get the ring on the finger and meet the perfect babe, and then you're home free and it's smooth sailing. Well, guess what? A lot of us have tried that, and it doesn't actually work that way. And I remember I once saw an Oprah show where she featured an author who had a book about bridezilla. And the idea is that there's a phenomenon of young women who believe that their entire purpose in life is to get married, to have that wedding. It's like the whole life revolves around their dream wedding. What happens after that, they don't think about, but it's to get to that wedding. And they had a young couple on, and the husband said to the wife, "Honey, do you really want to create a wedding day of $40,000 of our own money and then spend years paying that off?" And her answer was, "Well, yeah, it's my day. I've been waiting for it." And I guess they had to figure out what they were going to do. But there's this phenomenon of women who get their wedding day and they have their honeymoon, they come home and they become severely depressed because they had no concept that a marriage also included a relationship. And then the real fun begins because at that point they have to examine their relationship and say, okay, what's it going to take to live with this person? And he leaves his underwear around. I have my father issues. And then you really get into your work of the relationship. Not that it has to be really hard, but the point is that there's a lot more to a relationship than a wedding. And so we want to dispel this myth that if I can just get there, I'll be home free. So the truth is that relationship is more of a journey than a destination. That you can have your marriage, you can have your dream home, you can have your kids, but there's still some cutting edge of growth. And what's it going to take to go deeper with this person? What's it going to take to get to know yourself? And so, as Martin Buber said, all journeys have destinations of which the traveler is unaware. Which means you think you're going for one reason, but Spirit has another reason, and when the dust settles, it's that other reason that's going to be most valuable to you. So that's the way it is in our relationships too. It's all just fine. It's part of the big game. Another piece of our relationship is that the search for the beloved is the search for the self. When you think you're looking for the right man or woman, that's all fine, but what you're really looking for is yourself. You see, we have this idea that I'm sort of broken, and if I could just find somebody else who would fill in the gap, then I'd become whole. And we think, well, I'm kind of half. I got some good things going, but some big emptinesses. Well, I'll meet somebody else who's a half, and they have some complementary bignesses and emptinesses, and will kind of merge and will create a whole. But it doesn't quite work like that, because relationships are not additive, they're multiplicative. So you think that 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1, but it's really 1/2 times 1/2, which equals 1/4, which means that if you enter a relationship to offset some perceived deficit, that perceived deficit is only going to blow up in your face. For example, if you believe that a relationship will end your loneliness, guess what? You're probably only going to feel more lonely in a relationship, because until you've come to terms with yourself, you can't expect some other person to fix you, save you, or fill you in. So while it's perfectly fine to seek and marry an ideal mate, or to do your best to find one, at the same time, the only strategy that really works is wholeness. Because when you recognize yourself as whole, and then you get together with somebody else who's whole, 1 times 1 equals 1. And that one you end up with is actually bigger than the original ones, because wholeness married to wholeness creates even a more interesting wholeness. So there's some pretty big myths we have to unplug before we can get to the truth around relationships. And unfortunately, a lot of the music and movies and media that we're exposed to keep us in the hypnosis of smallness. And when I think back on the songs that I was growing up with, I remember "Can't Live, Living Is Without You," and "It's the End of the World because you don't love me anymore," and "Can't Smile Without You," and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And I wonder if we did a survey today of all the songs on the radio, how many would be affirming wholeness and richness of life, and how many would be affirming either need or victim. I was in Greece doing some programs, and my sponsors took me to a nightclub. And if you haven't lived until you go into a Greek nightclub review, they're just off the charts. And they have all these handsome, sexy young people going out and dancing around and singing songs. And it's quite entertaining. And so my hostess was sitting next to me, and she was translating these songs that these nightclub review people were singing. What's this song? "Oh, I can't live without you, and as soon as I get you, my life will be perfect." Okay, what's the next song? "You dirty SOB, I can't live with you, so I can't wait to get rid of you." What's the next song? "Oh, I've met you and you've changed my life forever." What's the next song? "Oh, now I've gotten rid of you and my life is finally good." And it went back and forth between "I need the one and I hate the one, you ruined my life." And so there's just kind of this consciousness of giving our power away to other people to either make us or break us. And folks, that just does not work. I mean, how many times will you pay to see the same bad movie? And so a lot of us are on a learning continuum that is inviting us to take our power back in relationships. And you've heard it said 1,000 times, but there's really no other way to say it, that until you fall in love with yourself, falling in love with somebody else is not going to have a lot of meaning. It's going to backfire on you. And someone else falling in love with you will not make you. It can inspire you to love yourself, but until you love yourself, the game becomes a game of brokenness and fixingness, which ultimately backfires on us. So let's bless our relationship journey, shall we? Whether we've had a lot of wonderful relationships, you've been married to the same person for 40 years, or you're still looking, you've had lots of ups and downs in your relationships, let's bless it all. Instead of considering them dates, consider them data. And let's say thank you for every moment, for every sex act, for every breakup, for every marriage, for every divorce. There's juice in it, there's something good in it. In fact, I have a book called Happily Even After, in which I interviewed couples who had broken up or were breaking up or had gotten divorced, and they learned to love and support each other in the process of breaking up or afterwards. And the subtitle of the book is 50 Ways to Love Your Leaver, because the idea is that we want to end on a note of harmony if possible. And one couple told me, this was a newly married couple, and this was their third marriage for each of them, I'll say. And at their wedding ceremony, they named and thanked their previous partners for helping them become the people who are standing at the altar to meet and greet each other today. So instead of cursing the SOB or the husband or the past wife experience and saying, boy, I wish that never happened, why not capitalize and say, thank you for the lessons, and I did the best I could at that moment, you did the best you could at the moment. I mean, Barbara DeAngelis, who's considered a relationship expert, she's been married and divorced 5 times, and she was on 2020 after her 4th divorce, and they were grilling her, somewhat rudely I might add. And they said, how can you come off describing yourself as a relationship expert when you're a 4-time loser? A pretty rude kind of question. And she answered it very deftly. She said, oh, I don't consider myself a 4-time loser. I consider myself a 4-time learner. She said, yes, I made mistakes, but I didn't make the same mistakes twice. And each marriage pretty much picked up where the last one left off. So in the long run, I've only learned and grown and been blessed by all my relationships. So wouldn't it be wonderful if all of us could adopt that attitude and just say, okay, it's an ongoing evolution, and it's all about falling in love with myself, and it's all about using the law of attraction to have love attract love. And the more I give love, the more I receive love. The more I am loved, the more I am loved. And so it's a fabulous journey. Let's milk it for all it's worth.